This NFL Week 9 Thursday Night Football edition between the Houston Texans and the New York Jets player props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to ground downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley.
Wilson, what as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Lincoln.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get NFL Week 9 started off with the Thursday night football game between my beloved Houston Texans. They'll be traveling to MetLife Stadium to take on Aaron Rodgers and his water and cayenne pepper new diet or trying to find the fountain of youth. But whatever works for you down there or up there, I should say, Aaron Rodgers, more power to you, my friend. But of course, we'll get into our player props here. We'll talk about some injury things. The main injury for the Texans side, get Chris's thoughts on that. And of course, give our player props, of course, touchdown scores and our honorable mentions before we wrap it up with best bets for this episode. But joining me, of course, here to help me break everything down for this Thursday night football game, I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappin. Chris, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What's up? I feel like I'm in a little bit of a whirlwind now that we got 8, 9, 10 games back on for NBA, and
yeah,
we got some Thursday night football, and it's a beautiful time of the year overall, though. So super excited. Got Halloween right around the corner. Get the kids out. Like it's just a great time to be alive. It's a great time to win some money. We appreciate everybody for dropping in on the podcast, man. Excited to be here as always.
Yeah, now's the time where we gotta make sure we are putting out winning bets here, because right around the corner is the holiday season, and we want to fill the pockets of our listeners there, and hopefully we can help them out. Get those holiday gifts or whatever the case might be. But no, you're right. It's a good time of the year. Winding down the 2024 year. Obviously, still got 2 full months: Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. But like you mentioned, with NBA here, NFL's in full swing, MLB is winding down, NHL kicked off as well. So it's just a good time. A lot of things are happening right now. So busy times, like I've always said. Especially around these parts at Sports Gambling Podcast Network. But of course, let's get into it. Thursday night football, the Texans and the Jets. Let's talk about obviously the big news for the Houston Texans. Stefon Diggs lost for the season with a non-contact injury that he suffered in Week 8 at home against the Indianapolis Colts, which was then confirmed as a torn ACL for Stefon Diggs. A big blow here for the Houston Texans, who are already without Nico Collins, but good news are on the horizon. On that front is going to be that Nico Collins is expected to be back for Week 10 for the Houston Texans. So good news there, but just sucks, man. I mean, we traded a first-round draft pick there for Stefon Diggs, we made a trade for Stefon Diggs, I should say, and restructured his contract where it turned into a contract year for him. So it's only on a pretty much 1-year deal, and regardless if it's my team or any other team that you just kind of hate, for this type of talented wide receiver to suffer that type of injury just going into a contract year, man. But again, a huge blow here. We'll see what transpires in the trade market for the Texans here, but at least not having Diggs there out on the field where we know what he can do and produce for this Texans team just sucks right now, man.
Yeah, especially when you guys had such a promising year. We talked about it when we did the season preview for the AFC South, how we couldn't quite get there because we thought the market had caught up to, where the Texans were. Granted, it was only 1 year with, having CJ Stroud there and, Nico Collins and just kind of getting the band together. And but we did think that the Texans were going to be good, 6-2, straight up. And you guys have looked really, really good and competent. And it just sucks when you see a big injury like that, especially CJ, down 2 wide receivers now. So hopefully, get well soon, Diggs, and get back on the field, to Nico Collins as well. But I still think your Texans got enough. It's not like they're playing against an undefeated Chiefs team here. They're playing against a 2-6 Aaron Rodgers led team. And I saw a tweet, that kind of just made me chuckle a little bit. It said, Devontae Adams just left a 2-16 for another 2-16. I thought that was pretty funny with the Jets losing outright to the Patriots, laying a full touchdown last week. Boy. Aaron Rodgers has seen better days,
Oh yeah, that's 100% for sure. It's funny that you mentioned that maybe this one feels a little bit better for him because he comes over to a team that has his buddy. At least he has a friend here in Aaron Rodgers that he can cope with after how bad the season has started here for the New York Jets. And I think I talked about it when we talked about this Adams trade was. Yeah, it helps them on the offense, but in totality, like I think there's still a lot of holes and a lot of glaring holes for this Jets team. And at some point you got to start looking at holding Aaron Rodgers accountable for how bad this team has been. I know that he doesn't play defense as well, but I mean, you have two wide receivers on this team with Garrett Wilson in his second year now. You asked for Devontae Adams, your good old buddy from the Green Bay Packer days, putting up monster numbers now on this roster. Breece Hall, we've talked about a lot, who's having a great year running the football and also catching the football forward. There's no excuses right now. Now the offensive line has had some trouble there as well. But again, you can't there's going to be holes somewhere. And I think that, for a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, that you have to find ways to win games for this team here. So obviously we'll talk about more here as a episode progresses here about the Texans and the Jets here. So, and I think, I'll make this last point about the Texans. It's been a season where we haven't had our top three guys, offensive weapons on the field altogether. I think it's only been 1.5 games, right? Because Joe Mixon went down in week 2 with that ankle injury. He was held out for a couple weeks there. Nico Collins suffered the hamstring injury while Mixon was out. And now you have Stefon Diggs gone for the year. So this offense hasn't looked like what it was primed to be this upcoming season. But again, like you mentioned, they're still 6-2 straight up and finding ways to win games. Some people may out there call them fraudulent, but I just think they haven't been able to live up to the expectation, especially what CJ Stroud did last year for this Texans team. So we'll see what transpires for this team on Thursday Night Football and going forward, but hopefully getting Nico Collins back does solve a lot of those issues on the offensive side right now. And Joe Mixon, I'm sure we're going to talk about him on this episode here, has just been an absolute monster for this Texans team. All right, Chris, before we get into the player props here, let me take a moment to thank everyone here on the Propcast for tuning in to us. I know we're a very, very unique show where we only talk about player props. Don't think there's a lot of shows out there that do this, and I think we've been having a lot of success here throughout the seasons. Whether it's been the NFL, whether it's been the NBA, providing this type of content to you. So, and again, we wouldn't be here without you, listeners. So, want to take a moment, if you have already, gave us a rating and review over on Spotify, thank you so much. And if you haven't done so already, do us a favor, go over to Spotify. It takes 1 to 2 clicks. Leave us that 5-star rating. Leave us a comment. Hope you say something nice about myself. If not, at least say something nice about my co-host Chris here. And honestly, just help us prevent corporate gambling from taking over. All right, Chris, let's get into it here, man. Thursday Night Football, Texans Jets. Right now, the line is in favor of the Jets -1.5. But let's get into our player props here. Let's start here with our quarterback props, Chris, and then we'll go from there. Where are you taking us for player prop number 1?
Man, the quarterback position, I felt like these lines, I don't know, maybe they are getting sharp. I feel like they're getting sharper here. And the one that I guess I like the most is, I guess game script tells me that, at least the way I think the game's going to go. I think you guys are live in this game, which is why they're not laying a full touchdown. But I think it's a game you guys could win outright. And I think the Texans still will be playing with the lead in this game. So we'll go Aaron Rodgers. I debated pass attempts over passing yards, and back and forth. But simply put, Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball. I mean, he's chucking it down the field. This offense not been efficient at all running the football. They've gone under their team total in general in 4 of the last 5 games. And of course, they've lost 5 in a row, like you said as well. So you look at Aaron Rodgers, he's over the 33.5 pass attempts, in 5 of his last 6 games. In 5 of the 8 games that he's played so far this season. I mean, Breece Hall has just looked like a shell of himself, and they aren't really establishing the run too often. He's also averaging 35.5 pass attempts so far this season. So that's good for over the 33.5. And all 5 of the last quarterbacks that have faced Houston have actually passed the ball 30 plus times against them. And 3 of those have actually landed right on 33. I think Aaron Rodgers passes the ball here. I think on a short week they don't really establish the run. The Texans' run defense has been pretty solid, and I think game script just says that there's potential they could be playing from behind because we've seen this defense not be that great at times. So I'll go Aaron Rodgers up and over 33.5 pass attempts. What about you? What are your thoughts on this one, and what's your quarterback, Brian?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense about what you mentioned there, right? 5 of the last 6 games, he's gone over his pass attempts. I know the Texans' rush defense, at least over the last 2 weeks, hasn't been the greatest, but prior to that, they were doing absolutely fantastic, like you mentioned. I think there was that one game against the Jaguars where they had a really good game. But other than that, the first 2 weeks held the Colts and the Bears 33 attempts for only 75 rushing yards. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. Against the Patriots, 21 attempts, 44 yards they only generated. Even against the Packers, yeah, they did get average 5 yards per carry, but I'm pretty sure there was a long run in there. I think it was like 40 yards for Josh Jacobs. That made those numbers inflate there as well. But the one healthy part of this team has been the defense and that front line for this Texans team. I know some of the linebackers have been out the last couple of weeks, but I do expect them to be, at least a couple of them, to be back in this game, if not week 10 for sure. So I do think that, again, if we are playing with the lead here, and you brought Devontae Adams over here for a reason, right? I know Breece Hall's been great as well coming out of the backfield, but he's also been involved in the passing game for the Jets there as well. So, yeah, I think this would be the look here for Aaron Rodgers. Not sure if I could get there with the yardage. I know the yardage has been there for him as well, but I think it's a little bit correlated that if he does get over 33.5 passing attempts, that he does get over his passing yards here for the Jets there. So, yeah, I'd be with you more so than I would be against you on this one here for Aaron Rodgers. For my quarterback prop, Chris, I mean, I just felt like overall in general, I was struggling to find some good value props in this game here, just because there's just uncertainty with this Texan side, of course. But I think it's gonna be, for me, Aaron Rodgers to throw in interception in this game. And I think that if the Texans want to, and that's at around -110 for Aaron Rodgers to throw in interception. So it's kind of correlated about what you mentioned, right? I think the pass attempts are going to be there. I think there's definitely an opportunity for him to throw an interception. I know he didn't have one last week, but prior to that, 3 straight games where he had thrown an interception. He had 3 against the Minnesota Vikings. The Buffalo Bills were able to pick him off, and then also the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to pick him off as well twice in that game. And this secondary for the Texans has actually been, I think, playing above my expectations this season. And D'Amico Ryans has done an absolutely fantastic job with this team on the defensive side. You take a look at the last 3 weeks here, Chris. They intercepted Drake May twice. They intercepted Jordan Love twice, and they got one off of Anthony Richardson last week as well. So the defense in the secondary has been ball hawking, to say the least, here for this Texans team. So I do think that if they want to keep, they want to stay competitive in this game, and like you mentioned, possibly being a win outright, I think they gotta create turnovers. I think that intercepting Aaron Rodgers, where they've done it 3 straight weeks against the opposing quarterback, I think is definitely in the realm of possibility here for the Houston Texans. So I'll take Aaron Rodgers to throw an interception here. Chris, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I like it. He's been doing that, and this Texas defense, I think, will still be able to put pressure on the offensive line that's still a little beat up here.
Yeah.
I know you probably talked about that when you did the other podcast, but there's some injuries for this. The Jets injury report is actually longer than the Houston Texans, and some of it has to do with their offensive line. I think I did see Moses
CJ Mosley, is it?
Morgan Moses is who I'm thinking of. Tackle for the Jets, long time Commanders. I saw him. I think he did go through practice yesterday, but I was looking at the injury report, and this one just makes a lot of sense, especially if we go think they're going to be playing from behind. And the cherry on top is, and this is one of the things that kind of just gave me a little bit of slight hesitation with Aaron Rodgers. The Texans, you guys actually possess the ball longer than any other team in the NFL. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that. 54.9% time of possession rating. So, that says that you guys possess the ball, probably have the lead, and then they end up having to throw the ball. And we've seen Aaron Rodgers make some crucial mistakes recently. So, I like it. And you're getting it without laying too much juice here. Good one here,
All right, before we get over to our next round of player props here for this Thursday night football game, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. Boostover is upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boost and much more. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use our promo code MACHINE. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here. Let's get over to our next round of player props here. If you have a running back prop, where are you taking us?
Man, I actually got two that I like. We'll start off with I'll say the one for honorable mention. We'll go Breece Hall here. You know, I know you probably got one for Joe. I'll leave that one for my honorable mention, but I'm probably going to end up playing it as well. I like Breece Hall under. I think it's correlated with Aaron Rodgers to go over on his pass attempts. You know, under 15.5 rush attempts. You can get this at plus money over on FanDuel, plus 108. Texans have done a pretty good job, like I mentioned at the top, of taking away the run. They're allowing the 8th fewest rushing attempts per game and the 13th fewest rushing yards per game as well. I think game script wise, I mentioned it. I think Houston plays with the lead here. I think they continue to run the ball. This Jets team continues to run the ball pretty sparingly. And on the season, I looked at it. New York rushes the ball just 22 times per game, you know, 3rd fewest in the league for just 3.9 yards per carry. Yeah. 4th fewest in the league for 86 yards per game, 3rd fewest in the league. So I just don't think it's going to be a big Breece Hall game. Aaron Rodgers has really, you know, nice, shiny toys at the wide receiver position with Wilson and Tyler Cochran. Even Cochran at the tight end position, Devontae Adams, his receptions was something that I was interested in, but that number is completely juiced to the over. So I think, you know, we've seen the success, I guess, a little bit more through the air than we have through the rushing attack, and I don't think we see anything different here. You know, if I think the Jets attack through the air and not as much on the ground, so I'll go Breece Hall under on his 15.5 rush attempts here.
Yeah, correlated, like you mentioned, right? If we like Aaron Rodgers, I think so. This was one, I think it was last week or the week prior that we had like the quarterback to go under his pass attempts and the running back to go over on his pass attempts. Rush attempts. But yeah, I think that you've laid out the numbers there. This Jets running attack, it's really been where Breece Hall has had a lot of successes against the teams that have been worse against the rush. And you take a look at the Texans team, we talked about it defensively. They've been pretty good throughout the season, only allowing 4.14 yards per carry, only allowing 83 rushing yards per game. And Jets bottom as far as their rushing attack goes. So, you know, as much as we love Breece Hall, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I think that at least for this week, hopefully he doesn't have a big week here against the Texans here. So, yeah, under 15.5. And let's not forget, they also have Braylon Allen in the backfield there as well that they want to get some touches to as well. So, you know, maybe not a huge disparity when it comes to the snap counts and the percentages there. But I do think that this is an opportunity where, you know, maybe you see Allen involved a little bit more in this game, at least against the Texans. All right, so we'll go to the other side here, Chris. And I was really surprised to see, I'll get your thoughts on this here as well. That was really a surprise to see how high the rush attempts were for Joe Mixon at 20.5. I honestly thought we'd probably get this maybe at 17.5 or 18.5. But I mean, look, the numbers make sense, right? Because teams are averaging close to 25 rush attempts per game against the New York Jets. And just over the last 5 weeks, it's been at least 24 rush attempts collectively by that running back group. For the Texans backfield, it's I would say 85-90% Joe Mixon. You mix in a little bit of Damian Pierce in there as well as Daria Gumbawale. But with how well Joe Mixon is playing right now, I definitely do think that he'll get 20 plus carries in this game, but just seeing that number 20.5, it just kind of makes me nervous there. But again, I couldn't talk anybody off if they did want to play that. So there's a couple other ways that I did want to attack this. I think I want to get your thoughts on this here. It's either I look at his rushing yards to go over, Chris, which is at 81.5, that if we do anticipate him getting, you know, let's just say he gets 19, 20, 21, he does get, I think that he definitely gets over this number of 81.5 rushing yards because, I mean, you just take a look at what this guy has done this season for this Texans team behind that offensive line. So the last 2 weeks, he's had a total of 50 rush attempts, 25 each over the last 2 weeks. He's eclipsed 100 plus rushing yards. 3 straight weeks, he's eclipsed 100 plus rushing yards. And then for the 5 games that he's played in, he's eclipsed 100 plus rushing yards. So game script wise, I think that if they want to have success, you're going to want to feed the ball to Joe Mixon because he's had a lot of success. And opposing teams are averaging about 102 rushing yards per game against the Jets. Last week it wasn't much from Ramondre Stevenson, but he did have 20 rush attempts in that game. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns there as well. We go back to week 7, Chris. Najee Harris, 21 rush attempts, 102 yards. So it seems like that's where I would kind of see that. If he does get 20 plus rush attempts in this game, that he does eclipse his number of 81.5. So what I'll do is I'll give you the over rushing yards, 81.5. And I was also curious to see what his longest rush attempt was going to be. 17.5 is a little bit rich for me, but do I see him absolutely breaking one out? Absolutely. So I'll give you the rush yards there, 81.5. Yeah, give me your thoughts on that one, and then I'll mention something if you want to tack on the rushing and receiving for Joe Mixon here, Chris.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. If I was going to save the rushing and receiving for honorable mention because I didn't want to give out 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what it is for me. I think Joe Mixon has another big game. You kind of laid out the numbers, I thought, pretty perfectly. It's the Jets defense that's really giving it up. I think without Diggs, without Collins, we're expecting a little bit more of Mixon to be involved in the receiving game as well. If you look at these numbers, and they've just continued to increase. His targets over the last few weeks have gone up, right? Let's see. Let me double check. Yeah, targets have gone up. He had 6 last week for 32 yards receiving, 3 catches for 30 yards 3 weeks ago, and then, of course, only 3 catches for 9 yards against Green Bay. But this is not a good Jets defense, Last week, like I said, he caught four catches for 4 passes for 6 targets as well against the Colts defense for 32 yards. Mixon, he's cleared the 110.5 in 5 of the 6 games so far this season that he's played him. He's averaging 122.5 rush plus receiving yards. So yeah, I mean, Mixon is due. I think he's due for another really big game through the air and through and on the ground as well. I think CJ will be looking for him. And to your point about his longest rush, if he has 4, I think I counted 4 rushes of 20 yards or more so far this season. So maybe not. I mean, he's only played 5 games. Maybe not the worst to take his over on his, rushing prop if you want to, put a little down on that as well, especially if you, just kind of want a big play and, you think it's probably going to come from Mixon. I like this one,
It's also what you mentioned about how long this Texans team is possessing the football. It's because they're running it, all these times against the opposition, and obviously with Joe Mixon there. So I think there's definitely that possibility here where they again continue running the football, and it's going to have to be a Joe Mixon game because, like we talked about at the top of the episode, not having your top 2 wide receivers there with Stefon Diggs and Nico Collins. So maybe a little bit of more reliance here on Joe Mixon in this game. All right, so those are our running back props here. Chris, let's get over to any wide receivers / tight end props that you do like in this game. Where are you taking us?
No, I just used Joe Mixon, for his receptions, receiving yards. I did contemplate his receptions at 3.5 because they are plus money. I know he hasn't had 4 receptions outside of last week, but I don't know. I just kind of thought that he would potentially get a few more receptions here. I thought the other guy that I kind of looked a little bit into, was your guy Tank Dell. I mean, I think he probably has to step up and have a really big game. I know his number was set at like 57.5. So I contemplated with Tank Dell. I just think that you guys are going to be able to move the ball through the ground a little bit more. That's what kept me off of taking CJ over on his passing yards, over on his pass attempts. I just think it'll be, pretty balanced attack. I do think Tank Dell can get to a number like 57.5, but it wouldn't surprise me if, Joe Mixon had a humongous game and we didn't see a lot, I guess CJ, have to do too much through the air here and having a, humongous explosive game. So I'll just keep Joe Mixon over on his rushing plus receiving yards for this wide receiver tight end category here,
Yeah, so I'll go over to the Jets. I know we haven't talked a lot about the wide receivers here for the Jets. So, a lot of talk has been about Devontae Adams coming over here and trying to build that rapport again with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it's not this time on a short week, but possibly after this week here where they have, kind of that mini bye here. So I'm looking at Garrett Wilson in this spot here, Chris. The number on his longest reception, it's set at, and I swear to God, I thought it was 21.5, but it's up to 22.5 now. but I still like it, right? He's been that downfield threat, a guy that can catch the football and make a move and make defenses miss. But you just take a look at the pure numbers. He's gone over this projection in 3 straight weeks for the Jets team. 24 longest reception against the Bills, 27 against the Steelers, 35 against the New England Patriots. And then early in the season, he had a long reception of 26 against the Titans and then 23 against the Denver Broncos. And I think those opportunities are going to continue being there for him because now the defense have to worry about Devontae Adams on the other side. So I think that opens up even more opportunities for a guy like Garrett Wilson. I was going through his box score there. I think this was a London game, Chris, and I had to kind of double check there because he had 23 targets in that game. Did Garrett Wilson against the Minnesota Vikings, 13 reception, 101 yards there. But I think I took the Garrett Wilson on his over receptions for our season long player props. He's already at 51 here, so I think that he's trending obviously in the right direction. But I do think that this Texans team, that at least the secondary, has given up explosive plays to the opposition here. I think Garrett Wilson is that guy that can take advantage of that against this Texans defense. If there was that there is a weakness I will say about this Texans team is about that secondary. They're giving up a big play. So I'll go wide receiver prop here. Garrett Wilson, longest reception to go over the official number now, 22.5 here, Chris.
Makes a ton of sense, especially if we think the time of possession is going to be, what it has been, right? If we think Aaron Rodgers is going to have to pass the ball a lot. And I think I was interested to see, I was going to save him for honorable mention as well. Now, I was interested to see if he was going to be on Garrett Wilson in some form or fashion this week because his numbers have, like you said, they've increased since Devontae Adams have gotten there. We didn't think that, it's necessarily going to play out that way, but now he's single covered. And what quarterback, can you think of a quarterback, in the NFL that would target a wide receiver 23 times? Only one.
Only one.
Only
it would
one.
be, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that was a game in London where some of these other wide receivers were either dropping catches and Aaron Rodgers said, nah, you guys are done. Here, Garrett Wilson, here's 23 targets here.
We're gonna play 2 on 11. But yeah, you just some other key numbers. You mentioned I think that are also we should mention here. He led the Jets with a 32% target share rate, right? And that was with, sharing the field with Devontae Adams, accumulated 169 air yards. So yeah, I think looking at it, this looks like a really good matchup where the Houston Texans, your pass defenses can be a little susceptible at times.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and I'm thinking that they're gonna have to play from behind as well. So I love this look here with Garrett Wilson. I was gonna mention him if you didn't in honorable mentions.
All right, before we do get into honorable mentions here for the Thursday night football game, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Rhythm. Hey, SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is a #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model for me, and Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Rhythm went 24-3 in their props for NBA Night 1. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business. BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. Easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. U.S. players are always welcome. BetUS is live with Trick or Treat on Horror Street. From now until Halloween, BetUS will be offering daily promotions plus a raffle entry to win a sports or casino prize pack that they will give away on October 31st. You can enter multiple times, and for every $200 that you deposit, you get one entry. So go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus, promo code SGPN. So they know that we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. All right, Chris, let's get into honorable mentions. I know you already mentioned a couple guys there that you were, holding out for until honorable mentions, but any other players you were looking at for honorable mentions?
Yeah, you know what? I think maybe once this year so far, I've given out a a kicker prop, and it's
Yeah.
one that I like in this one. Cal Fairborn is the kicker for your Houston Texans, and this guy has a leg on him. A play predicated on not believing in the Jets defense here, but also like just going through and kind of doing a little bit of research, diving into it. 2 out of 4 weeks, the Jets have allowed 3 field goals in each of those weeks, and those are the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, 3 field goals, that's enough to get this done. That's even without a touchdown. Yeah. You look at Mr. Fairborn, and he's over in 4 straight games with at least 10 kicking points in each one, and he's averaged 9.8 over the last 5 games. I want CJ as a road dog versus a road favorite every single time, because I think that sets up for even more points to be scored. Mr. Fairborn is 6 for 8 to the over on 7.5 kicking points. And this is actually plus money over on ESPN Bet. Not sure if it's going to close at plus money, but plus 105 over on ESPN Bet for Mr. Cal Fairborn to get 8 kicking points here. If I think he goes up and over, and I will be playing this. I know I mentioned it as honorable mention, but I like this one enough to go ahead and lock it in as well. Like I said, the Jets, I think this game will be, I think that you guys will still be able to move the ball without 2 key wide receivers. And, even if Aaron Rodgers throws a pick, that's another, field position or, potential extra point as well. So I'll take Cal Fairborn over 7.5 kicking points here. What that was the one that stood out to me the most,
Yeah.
What about just tell me what you think about that one, and what is it that you like that's on your short list here?
Yeah, he definitely has a leg to him for sure. And he's been pretty consistent when it comes to knocking down those 50+ yard field goal attempts for the Texans, and they've been able to utilize him heavily. And I think this might be a game, honestly, that I don't want to say points will be at a premium, but I think when the opportunity is there to take the points, I think that, D'Amico Ryans will do that with his kicker, because you can rely on him and everything that you mentioned there and how reliable he has been for this Texans team for the past several years. So I really couldn't talk you off of that one, especially if you're getting it at plus odds. I think a lot of us that are waiting for one player prop to drop is John Mechie for the Texans. That number hasn't been released yet, but he obviously is going to have some type of role, obviously, in this game for the Texans, being very thin at that wide receiver position, being down our top 2 guys here. But last week he stepped in, got 4 targets, had 3 receptions, 29 receiving yards in that game. So I think this is a great opportunity for him to really step up for this Texans team. When we talked about roster cuts and when they were, finalizing the rosters for this season, I thought that we were carrying too many wide receivers for the Texans, and I think now we can see why they're carrying those extra guys, because we still have Robert Woods, we still have Xavier Hutchinson, still have John Mechie there. But I'm kind of waiting for that John Mechie prop to drop. I haven't seen it quite yet. I know a lot of the other guys that are prop bettors are waiting for this one as well, but that was the one that I was looking at, just waiting to see if that dropped. Tank Dell, I think numbers is correct. I think the secret's out on him that, he was the guy last season behind Nico Collins, and prior to his injury last year that, he really flourished in his role with this Texans team. I think that number is set pretty accurately there for Tank Dell. But other than that, that was pretty much it as far as looking at for honorable mentions in this game. So nothing else really stuck out. Like I mentioned, this game was a little bit more difficult than the other weeks than finding some prop bets. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for honorable mentions. Do you have anything else you want to mention for honorable mentions before we get to touchdown scores, Chris?
Nah, that was the one that really stood out to me the most.
All right, let's go over to our touchdown scores here for this week. Here, Chris, what are you looking at as far as guys to find the end zone?
I want to double check the odds here, but I'm pretty sure I saw, because I don't like the game as much and there's a very low total, that I think still go under, because I'm not trusting the Jets offense. I talked about them going under on their team total for the last 5 games. And I do think that you guys' defense, the Texas defense, can step up and make plays. I didn't want to target a lot of touchdown props in this game, but I'm going to double check the odds real quick. I think I saw Joe Mixon at minus 111 on BetMGM. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why it's so cheap. It almost scares me a little bit. He scored in 5 of the last 6 games. So, I mean, that, really kind of jumped off the page to me. just with how much usage I feel like, I've already talked about how much usage I thought, he was going to have in this game. So honestly, that was the one that really just stood out to me the most. Davante Adams, I'm not sure what the odds are. I'll kick it to you. I like Joe Mixon the most. And if I can get him at -111, which I'm going to confirm real quick, that's what I'll play here. What about yourself?
I'll see anything under -150, Chris. I would play Joe Mixon. I know you and I, when we talk a lot about these touchdown scores, we really want to find those plus odds. But it just makes too much sense for Joe Mixon here, for him to find the end zone for this Texans team. So yeah, I see -145 right now on DraftKings. Honestly, I'm so comfortable laying that juice here with Joe Mixon. Davante Adams, you mentioned it, +140. I think we're all kind of still waiting for that first touchdown to come here for him with this Jets organization. I don't think he scored one quite yet, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that here for Davante Adams.
So, while you're looking at that,
go ahead.
-125 for Joe over on FanDuel, it looks like. Davante +160 on BetMGM.
Yeah, so he hasn't scored one just yet for this Jets team. It could be possibly this Thursday night football game. And then if you kind of want to, I think you can. This is a game where you can really find some long shots to find the end zone. I mentioned Braylon Allen for the Jets team. They've been utilizing him in the red zone there, whether it's been catching footballs out of the backfield or even running it. He's around +320 over on DraftKings. But again, like we always say, shop around, get the best number. Don Schultz has to be involved in this game some way, somehow. So, that number's around 3-1 for him to find the end zone. So I'll throw those couple of guys out there. Robert Woods at 5-1 as well. He's been a great blocking wide receiver for this Texans team, but I think that he's going to have to step up in the spot here as well. So I'll give you those couple guys there. 5-1 for Robert Woods. Don Schultz at around 3-1, Braylon Allen at +320, and then we'll talk about hopefully Davante Adams in a losing effort to find the end zone for the Jets team.
Any thoughts from on Tyler Cochran? I forgot I wrote his name down as well. I see him at 475 right now. He's back-to-back weeks with a touchdown.
Couldn't talk you off.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, kind of feels like they're using him, more so against pretty good defenses, Pittsburgh and New England. I don't know if New England's a good defense or not, honestly, but against Pittsburgh, 475 seems like might be worth a little sprinkle here, but yeah, Mixon is the guy for me here.
Yeah, I think even when we talk about Aaron Rodgers back in his Green Bay days, like he really utilized tight ends in the red zone there. So yeah, if he's done it 2 straight weeks, this could be another week where he does find the end zone here for the Jets, because again, like we mentioned, a lot of that attention probably does go to Davante Adams, and it does go to Garrett Wilson there as well. So yeah, I think that opens up the opportunities for him. All right,
81% usage rate, of last week, and it's been above 80 every other week as well. We didn't mention Breece Hall for touchdown scores.
No, we didn't. I think you
-110, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, with Breece Hall, we know he could get it done either running the football or even catching the football out of the backfield there. So I think when we talk about these pass catching wide receivers, I think that's one of the huge advantages that you do have with Breece Hall. So yeah, that's another guy I probably couldn't talk you off of either for Breece Hall. It's just I hate seeing that minus price next to these guys.
Yeah, he only has 4 so far this season, off of 8 games, and we know how much he's been a part of the offense too. So yeah. I'm with you. I wouldn't. It's nice odds, but I'm not playing it.
All right, so let's wrap up the show here with our best bets here, Chris. I'll let you lead off. Where are you taking us for your best bet?
Smoking Joe Mixon up and over 110.5 rush plus receiving yards. Best price I saw was -115 on BetMGM. I think I've given out under for a running back prop as the best bet in 3 or 4 straight weeks. And this week, instead of fading Breece Hall, which I really want to do at 15.5 rush attempts, we'll go Joe Mixon up and over 110.5. He, like I said, it's a line that he's covered in 4 to 5 games so far. The New York Jets, I don't think will be able to limit Joe. I think Joe continues to just play well, rushing the football, receiving. I talked about him catching 4 passes on 6 targets versus that Colts defense for 32 yards last week. So I like this. He's clear, like I said, cleared at 5 of the 6 games so far, averaging 102 rush plus receiving yards. And on a short week, I'm not thinking that we change it up too much if you're the Houston Texans here. You do what works, and what works, giving the ball to Joe, taking some of the pressure off of CJ, especially without having your top 2 receivers here. Joe Mixon up and over 110.5,
Yeah, love it. I think it should be a big Joe Mixon week. Like we talked about extensively, the top 2 targets are down for the Texans in this game at the wide receiving group. So I expect to see a lot of Joe Mixon in this game. And then, frankly, even when those guys were on the field, Chris, I mean, he was still getting fed the football here. So I think another great opportunity here for Joe Mixon. I think for mine, it made a lot of sense on how we broke down Garrett Wilson for his longest reception to go over. And those bets have been really, really good to me this season. So I'll give that out as my best bet. Garrett Wilson over 22.5 on his longest reception. And Davante Adams is really not that down the field guy threat anymore. He's a great route runner. And I think that rapport that they do have, whether it's, in short yardage or, the 2nd and 7s, those type of plays where you find Davante Adams. I think Garrett Wilson is a guy, number one, very athletic, has a lot of speed, and again, he can break one out and get down the field there for this Jets team. And like I mentioned, he's done it in more than half of the games that he's played this season for this Jets team, getting over this number of his longest reception of 22.5. So now defenses have to account for 2 wide receivers in Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams. And we talked a little bit about the Texans secondary has been a little bit susceptible to giving up big plays and explosive plays here. So I think there might be a play in this game where if the Jets are trailing, that they have to find a big player, and I think Garrett Wilson can definitely be the beneficiary of that. So I'll give out Garrett Wilson longest reception over 22.5 receiving yards on his longest reception there in this game for week 9 between the Texans and the Jets. All right, that's going to wrap it up here for this edition of the Propcast NFL Week 9 in the books. We'll be back on Friday, of course, for our Week 9 Sunday games player prop bet. So look out for us then. If you haven't already, make sure you guys subscribe to the Propcast YouTube channel here. We go live here every single time we do have a show and an episode. It's been very, very busy around the parts here of Propcast. I'm going to get a little bit more busy, of course, with the NBA season here as well. But make sure you guys follow my guy Chris over on the Twitter machine at ChrisBeCappin with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Chris, anything else, my man, before we get out of here?
No, nothing at all, Nope, nothing at all, man. Just enjoy Thursday night football. I think it is going to be a good game. Yep. Bet responsibly as always. And like Mino said, leave us a review if you would be so kind. And we'll catch you guys on Friday for all of the Sunday props.
Yep. Look out for us then. All right. Enjoy the Thursday night football game. Good luck with your bets. Bet responsibly. And always remember to let it ride.